We go now to secondary structures. So the next higher level of macromolecular, kasi macromolecular, that is a big structure, macro, okay, regular spatial arrangement of the atoms along the chain backbone. So there's a space based on the structure, merong space arrangement or the space between the atoms. So stabilized by weak non-covalent, so there is no sharing of electrons such as hydrogen bond, okay, hydrophobic interactions, meaning there is a bonding of molecules that will repel water. So hydrophobic, okay, that is afraid of water, or repellation of water and binding of molecules, and electrostatic attractions, or the attractions between two electrons of the specific molecules or ions. Okay, so primary structure, this one. So this is a chain of a polypeptide bond, single chain. For secondary, so there are almost two chain of amino acids. Okay, so they have a spatial arrangement between the chain of two amino acids, and hydrogen bonds are held by hydrogen bonds between amino acids at different locations in a polypeptide. So this is bonding of hydrogen ion held. So this was the backbone. So there's a space here. Try to see, this is pleated sheet. Okay, so we have tertiary and quaternary. So we will discuss later. Okay, so the two principal structure or secondary structure, alpha and beta helix. When you say alpha helix, this is a telephone cord shape. Alpha helix is held by hydrogen bond between NH group, okay, or the amino group, and then we have the carboxyl group, okay, that is the bonding group in the next turn of the helix, 4 amino acids down the chain. So the typical alpha amino helix is about 11 amino acids long. So this is 11 amino acids long, almost the maximum. The beta sheet, the pleated sheet structure, beta sheet is held together by hydrogen bonds between amide group of linear polypeptide. Linear siya, okay, polypeptide. So it is the bond between peptide plus peptide. So average of amino acid residues in beta helix is 6, with an average of 6 strands bonding together. So 6 lang siya. While this one is 11 amino acids long. That is the difference between the alpha helix and beta sheets. So the turns may be flexible loops of new amino acids serves to join the stretches of secondary structure. They may be sharp turns of reverse chain reaction. So there is what we call a turning of amino acids, okay, by protection, or facilitated, by the flexible loop. So this is the flexible loop. So pwede siya mag-turn pag ganun. And this one, balik dito. Okay, so that is because amino acids or the proteins are considered to be mobile. So pwede siya magkaroon ng stretching, turning. So this one will turn downward and this upward. So this is protected by a flexible loop. So tertiary structure. The tertiary structure, macromolecule. Masama ka macromolecule, that is big molecules, refers to large-scale organization of polymer chain that is seen in the level of the secondary structure. So arrangement includes secondary impact against each other. So when you say tertiary, parang secondary siya plus another secondary, so they are held together. So tamag no, this is called tertiary structure already. Okay, stabilized by non-covalent. So mayroon siyang linkage sa disulfide bond between cysteine residues, because cysteine, based on the structure, my dear student, it has a sulfur group or disulfide. Masama ka disulfide, 2 sulfide o 2 sulfur group. Fibrous and globular can be distinguished by the tertiary structures and chemical properties. So fibrous proteins tends to extend tertiary conformations. Take note, rules, mechanical support, and flexibility. So that is the work of the collagen fibers, the yellow fibers, white fibers, and we have the yellow fibers known as the elastin, okay, found in the muscles. So subtypes of collagens, usually connective tissues and skin structure also. the keratin there. Okay, it has a proportion of glycine, alanine, hydroxyproline residues in its polypeptide chain. So high proportions ng mga fibrous proteins includes glycine, alanine, and hydroxyproline. Okay, so this is an example of your collagen fibers. So this has a high proportion of proline, hydroxyproline, glycine, and even alanine. Okay, so this is presented by magenta, glycine, the gray and white is the proline, the arginine is the green part. Okay, try to see. Okay, and we have backbone chain, and the three chain spelling of the red, green, and blue also. So keratin, mostly found in hairs, nails, claws, also stiffens and supports the skin. Okay, the structure of tertiary contributes to directly mechanical properties of these uses. Usually, the skin protects also the body from the sun rays, sun radiation. Okay, have a proportion of keratin structure is called the coiled coil. So, two types, diba? The keratinized and non-keratinized. Mga baka keratinized, the nucleus are not visible. Okay? So, mostly, kung keratin layer, hindi mo makita yung nucleus dito because it is impregnated by a protein known as keratin. While non-keratinized, there is a visible nucleus. Okay? So, globular proteins, so spherical in shape, so surface-related rough, not smooth, so may mga ridges and valleys, some which may be quite deep. So, mostly the amino acid found in surface is non-polar. You say that is found in surface, meaning the cell membrane. So, polar and ionic side chains help to solvate proteins. When you say polar, it is more on the water-soluble. Ionic, okay, mag-amo ka ionic, the globular proteins already transfer electrons with water. Okay, so its tendency to solvate also protein. So non-polar is the hydrophobic chain. Okay, so large proteins may contain two or more regions. So the polypeptide chains individually have a compact called domain. Okay, so example mga domain, we have troponin C, alpha helices. This one is involved in the muscle contraction. And calmomodulin, alpha helices, calcium binding domains. So calmomodulin is found in the cytoplasm wherein it releases excess calcium, which functions also, which triggers, so increased calcium level triggers the muscular contraction, and of course the controls also the blood flow. Okay, we have nicotinamide binding glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. So this is during the reduction or redox reaction process. So we will discuss this one when we arrive at different reactions. Immunoglobulins, Paul's immunoglobulin G. So these are examples also during the immune response in our body. So we have quaternary structure, multi-subunit. Multi meaning there are many subunits or many polypeptides comprise the quaternary structure, that is almost 4. Associations, proteins, nucleic acid like ribosomes and nucleosomes. Okay, identical and non-identical. So you cannot really identify them because it is already a chain of 4 polypeptide chain. So we have a dimer. So saan ba kang dimer? Dalawa yan. So the 2 polypeptide chain which comprise of at least 4 polypeptide chain, which is considered to be a dimer. Mga baka dimer, dalawa. And mayroon isang tetramer, so that's 4, composed of alpha and beta subunits of hemoglobin. Glyceraldehyde 3 dehydrogenase is an example of the quaternary structure, that is tetramer. So we have glutamine synthetase enzyme also, it is a quaternary structure. Mostly enzymes are quaternary based on the structures. So this is simple quaternary. So this is dimer, dua. Hemoglobin is considered to be a dimer. Okay. So beta chains, hemi subunits, ito yung with iron, with alpha chains. So classification proteins and composition. So simple and conjugated proteins. When you say simple, it is composed only of one amino acid, albumin. So soluble in water, coagulated by heat. So main example is the human serum albumin. Of course, it is a protein that is responsible for protein binding. Kasi yung protein binding is very important class. Once the albumin in our body, okay, example, patients in ICU, okay, if you're the nurse, if the doctor diagnose the based on the laboratory and you try to see the diagnosis of doctor that there is a lowering of the albumin in the body and the patient is already in ICU, so that is indicated that the patient should be monitored based on the drug administrations wherein patients is prone to toxic effect of drugs because of the lower albumin in the body, because albumin is responsible for protein binding, which protects or prevents the body from drug toxicity. That is very important about serum albumin. Lactal albumin of milk and even egg albumin are also another source. So this is lactal albumin, okay, and egg albumin. Yung egg white is not the yellow pan. Kasi yung yellow more on fats. Yung egg white, okay, when you boil that one, so or you fry the egg, so it will be coagulate yung white that is more on proteins. Okay, so albumin is clinical treatment of severe hypoalbuminemia and also known as plasma expander. Okay, and lactal albumin enhances, sorry, kulang yung spelling ng efficiency in brain function usually found in cow's milk or independent milk or nutritional formula for infant formula, I mean for babies. And okay, next, globulins, so insoluble in pure water, soluble in salt solution, coagulated by heat. So example, egg albumin, globulin, serum globulins, legumin in peas. Ito yun sa mga munggo, mga beans, okay, serum albumin and egg globulin. So tawag yung globulins yan. Okay, so protamins, soluble in water, dilute acids. Ano ang example ng mga dilute acids? Sodium hydroxide, sulfuric, okay, nitric acid, alkalis, potassium hydroxide, okay, sodium hydroxide. So dilute acids, I mean HCl, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, alkalis, yung sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, ammonium hydroxide. Not coagulated by heat, meaning if you heat this one, hindi siya mag-coagulate, hindi siya magkaroon ng precipitate. Contains large numbers of arginine, lysine, residues are strongly basic. So combined with other acidic proteins. So protamine zinc sulfate are common commercial preparation of insulin. Okay, this is used for the treatment of diabetes. So yan ang prozinc or protamine sulfate. So prolamine, soluble in 70 to 80% alcohol, so insoluble in pure water, rich in proline but lack lysine. So casein in corn, okay, gliadin in wheat, hordin in barley. So these are examples of prolamines. Okay, so yung corn nyo, magkain kayo ng corn, hindi lang yun carbohydrates, meron din siyang protein in the form of casein. So lectins, precipitated by 30 to 60% ammonium sulfate. It has high affinity or bonding capacity with these sugar groups. So example, lectin for Dolichos bulbiflorus agglutinates human globulin. Group A1 are BCs. So this one are used in blood coagulation. And phytohemagglutinine, lectin from Phycelius vulgaris, another species of microorganisms. So this one is for coagulation of the RBCs and WBCs. Concanavalin from legumes attached to mannose and glucose. Okay? So example, magkaroon ng mga bleeding. So usually, ito sa nagkakaroon ng natawag natin na coagulation functions. Scleroproteins, so insoluble in water, salts, solutions, organic solvents, soluble in strong acids, sulfuric, hydrochloric, nitric, and phosphoric. Forms supporting tissues, so yung collagen in bones, cartilages, no? Tendons, keratin hair, horn, nail. Yung hoop, yun yung makikita sa sa foot ng horse. Okay, so yan example, collagen. Okay, makikita dyan ang collagen fibers. Ito yung joints, tendons, and muscles or ligaments. Okay, so yan ang tawag natin na hoof. Ito makikita yung hoof, may proteins rin yan. Next, conjugated combination of proteins and non-protein part called prostatic group. So hemoproteins, hemionit. Okay, ito yung iron, myoglobin, carrier, yung hemoglobin, oxygen binder. Lipoproteins, low density lipoproteins, high density lipoproteins. So mga lipid carriers, they plays the important role, especially in the hypercholesterolemia. So magtaas yung cholesterol. So we will discuss it later. Glycoproteins, carbohydrates, the gamma, antibodies for immune response, mucin, itong lubricant, mucous secretions, using yung mga laway, it contains mucin in our internal organs, may mga mucin yan. Interferon for antiviral protections. Phosphoproteins, so we have glycophosphorylase, enzymes in glycogen, which involved in phosphorylation process in different reactions in our body. Nucleoproteins, nucleic acid, ribosomes for protein synthesis. Viruses, self-replicating infectious complex. Okay, metal proteins, metalloproteins tawag doon. Ang prosthetic group is metal. Iron, ferritin, zinc, alcohol, dehydrogenase. Storage complex for iron and enzymes in alcohol oxidation process. So these are tawag conjugated proteins. They are combined with non-protein part. Okay. So this is known to prosthetic group, the non-protein part. So example of protein drugs, for example, you have insulin, humulin. So ito yung nag-regulate sa blood, glucose shifts potassium into cells. So take note of this one. Treatment for diabetes mellitus, ketoacidosis, and hyperkalemia. Erythropoietin, epoetin alpha, ito yung epogen-renogen. So when you administer drugs, especially kung nagkaroon ng anemic or chronic diseases, so ito yung nag-stimulate ng production of red blood cells, erythropoiesis. HPV, human papillovirus vaccine, Gardasil, quadrivalent HPV recombinant, so strain 6, 11, 16, 18, so prevention of human papillovirus infections. Okay, we have hepatitis B surface antigen, Energerix, Combivax, non-infectious protein on surface hepatitis B virus. So usually it is Hepa B vaccination. So tawag sa coronavirus. Diba? Ang coronavirus vaccine is coming also from a coronavirus that is inactivated or attenuated. So inactive protein siya, which can inhibit also the virus or the bacteria itself. Okay? So yun ang tawag natin mga vaccines. So mostly ang mga vaccines are protein drug. That's why when you administer to the patient yung mga vaccine sa hospital, so try to read also. Most of that one are protein. Okay, that's why we study biochemistry. You have not only inject drugs to the patients, but you have to know what is the nature or the properties of that drugs. It is a protein drug ba siya or a carbohydrate drug. Okay, so we have protein diseases with Alzheimer diseases. So formation of amyloid protein, which is insoluble, that causes plaque in the neuronal cells. So, consists of beta-pleated proteins or protein misfolding. Okay? Ito yung mga amyloid. So, yung mga abnormal proteins that found in the brain, which shrink the brain. So, tawag doon, Alzheimer disease. So, it will affect the cognitive function, the memory, and the critical thinking of the patients. So, tawag doon, tawag doon term is Alzheimer. So there's a problem already with the amyloid protein that tawag doon na nagkaroon na siya ng plaque, okay, the neuronal cells which cannot function well. So hindi mag-function yung imo na neuronal cells because of the amyloid protein that is present already in the brain. So hindi ka na number one, hindi na maka-think na yung patient, di ba? Hindi na siya makakaroon ng maayon na memory. Okay? So, primary nursing diagnosis. So, self-care deficit reludes impaired cognitive and motor functions. Okay? Self-care yan. So, parang you have to ask patients of the past experiences. Ganon. So, parang nirevive mo yung memory niya. Outcome, self-care activities, daily routine. So, bathing, hygiene, eating, cognitive ability, okay, comfort, role performance, social interaction skills, hope, diba? Kung kanun na siya, try to do the self-care, self-care, to the patient. So, ma-develop na yung mga basic activities in life niya. Kasi minsan kung ang patient naman nagkaroon ng lost memory, minsan hindi na alam yung hygiene niya, even bathing. Okay? So, during that self-care, especially yung cognitive and motor functions niya, usually ano yun, parang kina-counsel mo na yung patient amat-amat space para ma-revive yung memory. So, intervention, self-care assistance, so bathing hygiene, take note, oral health management, importante, behavior management of the patient, so body image enhancement, emotional support, mutual goal setting, exercise therapy, discharge planning. Okay, usually exercise therapy, you have to do the may medications na siya plus yung interventions mo. Okay, especially hygiene and bathing, di ba? Oral health management, okay, kabalo na siya brush, ganun, behavior management, okay? So it is the specialty of the nursing. I'm not a nurse, but you as a nurse, you have to do this one. Kasi yung ang pinaka-importante that is yung emotional, mental ability of the person when the patient, when the patient is suffering from the Alzheimer's, yung mental ability should be what we call this one, should be managed. Okay? To hindi man sining 100% magbalik yung memory niya. At least kahit papaano magkaroon siyang improvement, especially in memory and of course in behavior.